Hello everyone! This week I'm about to make Gorgon from classic game, at least in my country, called Heroes of Might and Magic 3. This video is about to be some way experimental for me, because here I was first time using monster clay for sculpting, which means that I will have to make silicone mold from it. That's one of the reasons I'm sculpting this unit from game, because it is actually quite easy to sculpt because it is just a ball. But of course, to not make it so boring as we have it in game, I will add some of my details also to it. It is actually a really weird unit in this game because it is painfully normal as for fantasy game, but has some of the most dangerous abilities that can kill your most defensive unit. That's why it is also one of my favorite units, because no matter how hard was your best unit, this little guy could smash it easily to pieces. Anyway, as always in the beginning I'm focusing more or less on shape of creature, so I'm adding here as much clay, scratching it with my tool. I always like to give even a little bit more of clay and later remove it with tool, because it gives me more space to shape muscles or some details. Let's call it some sort of planning for sculpting. And when I was more or less satisfied with the results that I have, it was time to make some small rolls of clay and add it on my sculpture to work as a muscles. Again, I'm not focusing here on making every piece smooth and nicely polished, but it is more for overall look to see what I can add more or remove, and when I'm satisfied with this amount, it was time to blend it with tool. Later it was time to create some sort of armor that our bully have. I was not sure what it is, but I assumed it is some kind of protective shell, so I decided to go same way, but with different pattern. My idea here was to make it look really like some kind of armor, and what I mean is making it more symmetrical, like plates from real armor. In some parts I was sculpting in the clay that was already on my model, and in some places I've added extra piece of clay to give more 3D look of it. So far I have to admit that I know why monster clay is one of the most popular one, because it is really good to work with, and you can adjust clay hardness to your preferences with temperature and it sticks perfectly to the model. It was time for head, and of course I used here reference photos from internet. And here is also another thing that I changed with this unit, and it is adding skull as some sort of helmet. I found it a nice way to show that this creature is kinda dangerous because it carries corpses of his fallen friends. But I also wanted to have some practice with sculpting skulls. It is something that I'm planning to use very often in my sculptures, so it's always nice to have some practice for that. After head and result that I've got, I was so hyped with the idea that I decided to push it even more further, so I've added spine that goes through his back. At the end making his hoofs, and that was all for this sculpting. Now time to make box for him, where I will pour some silicone to create mold, and for molding I'm using also here vacuum chamber to take out all of the air bubbles to avoid any bubble that can ruin my mold. Off camera I took Bull outside, and it is off camera because I was a little bit flocking around with it and Bull ended up, well, not so good. Time for pouring resin, and that was also new material for me because it is totally different resin than that I was working with before, but it also cures very fast, so that's something I appreciate a lot. So I have to admit, as for first time, I was really satisfied with how it turned out. Painting time. With this one it was nothing difficult if we're speaking about painting, because you know, there is not so much details to paint, and major part of it is armor that I painted with some kind of chameleon paint that changes color. And of course, at the end, to add more grimdark look, I used oil wash, so oil paint mixed with turpentine and later flooding sculpture with this mixture. When it's dry, take it off with towel soaked in white spirit and voila, done. So that's it for this nice guy. I have to say it was a nice lesson for me and I hope you like also this kind of process. Have a nice day and bye bye.